Hey, Family Seekers, this is Brian Leslie Fotherby coming back to you again. Course number 6, The Secret to Parenting and Partnership, the PIP course. I'm having fun with that. This is the third and final unit in this course to parenting and partnership. There's a whole lot more we could do, a whole lot of things
and we're going to go into a whole lot more things.
We can.
These are some beginnings.
Just some beginning things on parenting and partnership, and we'll do more as we move forward with other courses and other things that we're going to do. It's hard to bring an entire life of parenting, an entire life of principles, an entire life of what to do in a short period of time. So we're just trying to give you the highlights, and we're trying to give you some principal things to take and apply into your lives with your family. So anyway, this one's really kind of critical, and this is one that you want to start early. If you haven't started when they're young, you can start later, but it's a little more difficult. But you want to start this very young, and because this one will affect their entire life as your children. They'll do this into their adulthood, and it's called their bedtime routine. You want to create a bedtime routine for your children.
Yes.
Leslie has just been exemplary in doing this with all of our kids. I followed suit and learned to do it with her. I was not one who had a routine growing up because there were 6 kids and it was madness. And my mom kind of let us kind of do. Now she may yell, "It's bedtime," and then an hour later, "It's still bedtime." And then my dad went, "She said bedtime." And now that was kind of our routine. It wasn't really a routine. It was more of a death threat.
Wow.
And unfortunately, all 6 of us lived.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I'm here to tell you that a bedtime routine is important.
It is.
I really did not have one coming into our marriage. Leslie did. So I let her take the lead on this and our parenting, and I learned from her. And so now we have routine now, and she gets frustrated with me because every time, even after we put the kids to bed, even now as they're older, she has a certain routine that she does every single night. And by the time I'm already in bed, laying there ready to go to sleep, and I'll be giggling. She's like, "What?" It's like, "Nothing, nothing at all." Because there's nothing less than a catastrophe that's going to keep my wife from her routine at bedtime.
Okay.
And so my children have learned the same thing, and they're the same way. So with that said, since my wife's really the expert in this, I want her to go ahead and take the lead on this particular unit, and then I'll pipe up when necessary as we go forward. So go right ahead, babe.
Okay, so this one's really included in this course because it's something that mom and dad need to kind of be united about.
Yes.
We talked last unit about being a united front. Well, this is another place where being a united front is really important. Children who are just left to their own devices and eventually find their way into bed, or they're up all night, or they're not corralled into their space and content and sleeping for the night. This just creates a lot of havoc in your family, and you don't want that. The goal of our family has always been to be peaceful. We need peace in our family. We want to live in peace. We want to be in tune to one another and be content and be happy. I mean, that's a goal that we want to attain. But we want there to be peace. And so at nighttime...
Can I jump in just real quick?
Yeah.
The reason we want peace, it's a biblical reason. The scripture says this. It says, where there is strife, there is every evil work.
Yes.
Every evil work.
That's right.
So, have you ever had strife at bedtime? Ever had strife when you're doing stuff with your kids? Strife is your enemy.
Yes.
Strife is definitely an enemy as a couple, and strife is your enemy as a parent and as a family. So the reason we ascertain and push and stretch for peace is to keep strife out of our life. It still shows up from time to time, but when you have a routine, it helps to eliminate and lessen, and maybe not eliminate, but certainly lessen to a considerable degree the amount of strife that you deal with in that process of life. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's really good because it makes me think of another thing. Another reason that we have a routine that we do at night is because it's orderly.
Right.
And God is an orderly God. And He has a place for things, and He has a way things are supposed to run. And so we really are being like him when we have a routine, when we have a schedule for things. God is a very orderly person,
Yeah.
and so he wants us to be the same way.
Yeah.
Not only that, but at nighttime, in the dark, that is where the enemy has his heyday. He has things that he wants to get done
Right.
and accomplish in the nighttime.
Sure.
And so we are guarding against that from the beginning, by getting kids in bed at a reasonable time, and that time's going to fluctuate depending on how old they are. But we get kids in bed, and we have prayers over them, and we are trying to set the stage for them to have the best nighttime experience that they can have, because then they'll wake up and have a good daytime experience, hopefully. So that's kind of the background why we want there to be a really good bedtime routine. The first thing that he said is, and I agree, start young. So when you have a newborn, of course you're going to be kind of dictated by the eating schedule that they're on. We're not going to necessarily touch on newborns right now. Actually, my daughter and I are coming on to do that later. And so this is going to be exciting. It'll be fun. We're going to talk all about newborns. But we're really talking about like young children. You want to start when they are toddlers. When
toddlers and up.
You want to let them know that, okay, this is the time that we go to bed. When we're ready to go to bed, we're going to do this, this, and this. And you can pick what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
We did things like brush their teeth. We did things like pick up toys, had to be done before bedtime. So we picked up toys, we brushed their teeth. We maybe got a drink of water, because every child in the world knows that when they lay down in the bed, the first thing they should do is ask for a glass of water. It delays bedtime. I don't know, make them get a drink before they go lay down. So we
Nurse
did
operative
that.
number 3.
Yes. So we did that. We prayed over them. We prayed together with them. So when they're really little, there's probably just a handful of things that they need to do that really get them ready for bed. Maybe they have to find their favorite toy to sleep with, or a stuffed animal, or whatever. But maybe they need a nightlight on, so that you might need to include that in your routine. But start young with them. Start young, figuring out what they need to settle down and to get them to sleep. We were not parents who spent a long amount of time lingering with them to get them to go to sleep. We put them in bed. We expected them to go to sleep. Now, that doesn't mean they always did.
Right.
And sometimes we had to go back and we had to say, it's bedtime. Now it's the time we're going to sleep. And so we would work with them to get them to actually go to sleep on time. That's probably a whole other thing too. But, but know that you start the routine early so they know what's expected. Children thrive when they know what's expected. And the two of you should have already discussed it, because you're being a team. So you've already discussed what's important to the two of you to get accomplished, and when bedtime needs to be accomplished. When they're little, 7, 8 o'clock even is, that's a good time for littles. And that gives you and your spouse time to be together after they've gone to bed, after the children have gotten in bed. As they get a little older, that bedtime always increased, and it got later and later. But for us in our family, the cutoff was usually 10 o'clock. If you're a child in our home, 10 o'clock was the latest you were going to be up. It's time to go to bed. We go to bed because you need to be in bed to get your sleep, get your rest. And teenagers actually need more sleep than young kids sometimes. So get your kids in bed. Don't let them stay up till all hours of the night. And we had night owls, but the rule was always you need to be in bed by 10 o'clock. And we would, do whatever the routine was for their age, and then they would.
And you want to stick to your set time, and you want to stick to your routine. As you're doing that. However, with that said, there's a note at the bottom of our notes here, but I'm going to plug it in here. Don't be so rigid with your set time and your routine that you can't flex. For example, if it's just like the kids have other kids over, we're still going to make the bedtime routine, and we're still going to make it within reason around the 10 o'clock time, or maybe a little earlier. We make it a little extra room because they got their friends over for sleepover. However, now it's going to sound strange to you, but if I had adults over that were, I'm a pastor, and so I had people come over that were in ministry. I wanted my kids to hear what they're saying, so I would let them, sit around now and learn from the people that we were learning from, even though it's later in the evening.
Yeah.
Because we wanted them to pick up, catch some of the things that we were catching as well. So be flexible. Or maybe you have a family night that you're going to stay up late and do popcorn in a movie, and it's okay to do those kinds of things. So don't be so rigid. Like, we know people that would go to somebody's home and they had a set time, which is great. They were doing what we're talking about, and their set time might be 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night because they're littles. And let's say it was 8 o'clock at night, and they showed up to a party at 7:30, but at 8 o'clock they left because they're going to take the kids and go home and put them back in bed, because God forbid that we don't get them in bed by 8 o'clock. They're going to die. No, be flexible. Don't be so rigid.
The thing about that is, when you have a routine and a schedule, you're not supposed to be a slave to it.
Come on.
It's supposed to be working for you.
Yeah.
So on a regular basis, you have a routine.
Yes.
You have a set time. But if something comes up, you're able to have grace and flex and enjoy things in life, because life isn't meant to be just serious all the time. You got to have some enjoyment.
That's why she married me.
Yeah, that's why I married him. Another place where you might need to flex is when I was young, my dad got saved when I was about 10, 11 years old, and he led a Bible study. And my mom and dad both went to this Bible study. Every week on Thursday, we went to Bible study. And my sister and I went with them to Bible study because my mom did not leave us home alone. My sister was like 8 or 9, and I was, 10, 11, I don't know, something like that. And so they took us to Bible study. Now, we participated some where we, when they sang songs, we sang with them. We maybe listened a little bit, but when it came time that we needed to be sleeping because we had school the next day, then what the person's house that we were at, she always laid out blankets on the floor with pillows, and we just all laid down and went to sleep when it was time to go to sleep. When they were done with Bible study, my mom and dad woke us up, they took us home, put us in bed. And so it was a variation from our regular routine. But it happened every week, and we knew what was expected, and we knew that we were supposed to maybe work on our homework, and then we had to lay down and rest. It was still covered. My mom still made sure that we were in a routine of sorts, but if we had to flex a little bit for that. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to flex. So yes, stick to your set time. Don't let your kids talk you into hours and hours late, every night. That's not healthy. They need to have a set time. And I'm going to tell you why they need a set time. They need boundaries. Children thrive on boundaries. Yep. When they don't know what the boundaries are, they flounder around, and it's unsettling for them, and it's insecure for them. They need to know that there is a boundary line, that this is what we're doing. This is where we're going to bed. This is when we're going to bed. This is what we're going to do to get ready for bed. They've got to know those boundaries, because then they can relax, and they can be content, because they know what's expected. They know what's coming, and they know it's coming every single night. And so that's really security for them. And
if you think she's wrong with that, you're wrong, because children do thrive with boundaries. I served as a youth pastor for 2 decades, and because this affects them long term, because boundaries are a sign of love. Yes. Boundaries are a sign of care, and boundaries are a sign of relationship. Yes. And I can tell you how many, I can't give you the number, but I'd be a rich man. All the kids that as teenagers, I ministered to in a youth ministry, and I would talk to them about their family and stuff, and I'd be talking to these kids, and they're like, my parents don't love me. I mean, how can you say that? Your parents love you? I mean, what do you mean they don't love you? They let me do anything I want. Yeah. There were no boundaries set. Zero boundaries. And I can tell you 100% of the kids that told me that their parents don't love them were kids who had no boundaries. Yeah. They instinctively know there should be boundaries, and those boundaries are meant for the protection, and they're meant to show the love of the parents to the child. And when they had no boundaries, they did not have a feeling of being loved by their parent. Right. So boundaries are definitely a serious thing. They are. And they need to be implemented for your children to thrive. Yeah. Now, The kids who had boundaries were fruitful and thriving and at peace and well balanced kids.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about bedtime routine, it can be performed by either parent or both parents. So there were times in our children's lives that Brian was the one who went and tucked them in and prayed over them, and made sure that they were all snuggled up with what they needed, and he was really good at that. There's times that I'm the one who does that. I'm the one who makes sure they're tucked in and prayed over them and loved them. We always prayed.
Yeah.
Prayer every night is a thing for us.
Yeah.
And even before we had kids, Brian would pray over me. Before we went to sleep, it was just a thing that we did. And so it gives your kids that sense of security when you're praying over them. Pray for them to have good dreams. Pray for them to have sweet sleep, pleasant sleep, good sleep, and then to wake up refreshed. So it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be long. It just needs to be a prayer over them that makes them feel that security of they're in God's hands while they're sleeping.
Yeah, that's so true. And what you're doing is you're training them. You're teaching them how to be that, and it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Any good athlete, the reason they're a good athlete is because they train.
Yeah.
The guys that sit out there and you watch, let's take basketball. I'm not a huge basketball guy. Let's take basketball. The guy that can sit out there and just pump in 3-point shots.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't see is the thousands, not 10, but thousands of shots that he or she took from outside the arch of that perimeter, of the 3-point perimeter, and just in practice from different places on the court. And they would even have friends, and they're like, get in my face. They would train themselves and envision themselves making that shot in a game. Well, there was no one else on the court. Sure. They might have done it in a backyard alley, wherever. They shot and shot and shot and shot and shot. So they perfected that to the point that it became muscle memory.
Yeah.
And so now when they take a shot, it doesn't matter if someone's running at them, the crowd's being loud, there's buzzers going off. None of that matters because their body was trained to take that shot. Yeah. The same thing with the bedtime routine. You're training them over and over and over and over again to where it's not something they even like think about. After a certain point, it's just something that they do, and they're comfortable with it because you, as mom and dad, have trained them to do that.
The one thing about training, in specifics, maybe I love what your analogy was. The specifics of it might be that when you're training your child, you start with doing it for them. Yeah. And you talk to them about what you're doing. So, like let's talk about brushing teeth. So if you're brushing their teeth, you're showing, okay, we go this way and we go this way, and you're explaining to them what you're doing. Then you do it with them. Yeah. They hold the toothbrush. You hold your hand over it and you help them do it. Then you progress into they can do it themselves, but you watch to make sure that they've got it all, done it all well. Absolutely. And then eventually they get to the point where they can do it all by themselves. Right. So training is a process, and it takes mom and dad being the ones who are partnering with each other and then partnering with the child to help everybody learn and grow and be able to do what they need to do. Yeah. And so it's a really important thing to train your children. Right. And it doesn't happen overnight. You have to do the process. Right. The process is to continually do it over and over and over for them, with them, watching them, and then finally they can do it themselves. Yeah, say that again, because that's important, because I've seen that process done in workplace. I've seen that done in sports. And why not you're the coach. Yeah. Look at it, you're parenting, but you're the coach. You're coaching them, you're training them to be what they're supposed to be. So what are those 4 steps again? So you do it for them, you do it with them, you do it and watch them, and then you let them do it themselves. Yeah. So for, with, watch, release. Yeah. Okay? So those are the 4 things in your training. So we really, we know that these principles work. We've seen it in our own lives. We have 5 children. Our youngest is soon to be out of the house. She's about to turn 18 this year at the time of this recording. And so, Leslie's still young. I'm getting old. One more thing I want to add. Yes, one more thing I want to add. he talks
I
about
was
how
done.
I know he talks about how um, the routine of it lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah.
I just want to share that when our um, two of our children went to their first year of college, they were so ingrained in their bedtime routine that they couldn't they were used to being in bed at 10, and that helped them to get up in the morning and do the things they needed to do. And so they were so used to it, they when they went to college they stuck to it, and they would have friends make fun of them, oh, they're going to go to bed now, and they'd have roommates who were not happy about it. And but they were so used to their
Yeah.
bedroom routine, their bedtime routine really stuck with them
Yeah.
even through their college, and they functioned so much better because they
Yeah.
had a routine, and they knew they needed to be in bed by a certain time. They knew
Yeah.
that would help them get up on time,
Yeah.
and they would be ready for their studies and everything that they were doing. So it really
Yeah.
did
That's
stick
valuable.
with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you can
And
wrap
they,
it up. I'm
and
sorry.
they, no, you're great. And they did well.
Yeah.
They had a little pressure from some friends, but they did well.
Mhm.
And they did make exceptions from time to time
Yeah.
when the school was doing something. But anyway, it's a training, it's a process. Embrace the process and watch your children flourish
Yes.
with the boundaries and routines that you give to them.
Mhm.
We'll look forward to seeing you in the next course,
Yeah.
and we'll look forward to hearing the results in this
Yes.
group of how things are happening for your family.
Yeah.
Remember, we're so working towards becoming an unbreakable family, and these are little
Yes.
things that mean a lot
Yes.
over time.
Mhm.
So we'll talk to you later. Good to talk to you again. We appreciate you being here for this course.
Yeah.
We're partnering and parenting, or parenting and partnership. Pick the title. We don't know. We'll figure it out. But thank you for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.